It's the final week of the regular season of college football. Championship weekend gets going next week. For the Big 12, the Oklahoma Sooners have already locked up a spot in the Big 12 title game, but that second spot is still up for grabs. For TCU, the equation is simple. Beat your arch rival Baylor on Friday, you get another shot at OU. Let's dive into that game as well as the Kansas State-Iowa State game in this week's Big 12 Big Football. The Bears and Frogs have been playing since 1899 when the two schools played to a scoreless tie. TCU actually used to be located in Waco until they eventually moved to Fort Worth in 1910. For former players, the rivalry is still very much a huge deal. Josh Carraway, Josh Doxson, and Aaron Green all chimed in with the hashtag BeatBU. TCU owns the all-time series by just one game, now at 53, 52, and 7, and it's a blackout at the Carter on Friday morning. For Baylor, it's been a tough year, but head coach Matt Rhule had a special message to all the Baylor students that continued to show up and support their team this year.
I don't know that I can say enough about our fans and our crowd. We're in our student section on Saturday. I mean, we've been to a lot of other places, right? And we've seen other people's student sections. We've seen other people that, maybe they're down a little bit. And we look at on tape and we see other people, to think that, that our student section and our students would show up en masse to a team with our record on Saturday and stay till the end. I mean, it's really inspiring, to be quite honest with you, and it just, I think, energizes you as a coach and as a player.
Kickoff is set for 11 a.m. on FS1. Now let's move over to Saturday, where Iowa State will look to win its 8th game of the year as they travel to Manhattan to take on Kansas State. And Phil? This is Phil. If you haven't seen him when he first showed up, K-State had just come back from 11 down to win in Lubbock, and the celebration in the locker room was on. And then this happened. According to a story in the Wichita Eagle, a Kansas State equipment manager actually brought him to Lubbock. Then senior DB Brogan Berry found him in the visitor locker room at Jones Stadium and decided to start jumping up and down around with him. Berry tweeted this after the game: "That game was nuts. One moment we're down 11, next we're in OT, then suddenly I'm holding a stuffed bobcat over my head in a mosh pit after a W." Lubbock wasn't the only place Phil has shown up. He's made a guest appearance at Stillwater after the upset win over Oklahoma State. And once again, Phil the Bobcat was in the middle of the celebration. College football has had some interesting gimmicks this year, from Tennessee's turnover trash can to Kennesaw State's turnover plank, and of course Miami's turnover chain. But if you ask me, Phil the Bobcat tops them all. Iowa State is the only team in the country to still not have lost a fumble this year. A big contributor to that is David Montgomery, who's averaging better than 120 yards per game in his last 5. Montgomery went over 1,000 yards on the season in Saturday's win over Baylor, and is just the 14th player in Iowa State history to do so. Finally, we've also hit that time of the year where the individual award finalists are announced. OSU's James Washington and West Virginia's David Sills were named finalists for the Biletnikoff Award, given to the nation's top wide receiver. Quarterbacks Mason Rudolph and Baker Mayfield were named finalists for the Davey O'Brien Award. And UT's Deshaun Elliott was named a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, while teammate Michael Dixon was named a finalist for the Ray Guy Award. That's it for the regular season of Big 12 Big Football. We'll see you next week at AT&T Stadium, where a Big 12 champion will be crowned. For the Big 12 Conference, I'm Aaron Pryor.